All right, we're gonna get Natalie in here. All right, invite. Right. Stoked, guys. Yeah, we're gonna get Natalie in here to talk about some really awesome, wild, interdimensional, extra, intra experiences that she's had. Just a lot of things that I think it's important that we come to understand are, around us and happening at all times. This is a constant for sure. And Natalie's gonna hop on here and share some really amazing wisdom and information with us. So this is going to be cool. For those of you that aren't familiar, Divine Transmissions, that's Natalie. Let's see here. She's a channeler, a speaker of light language, and just uh, she does a lot of stuff in pretty much everything that is, you know, out of this realm here. Give me one sec. Sorry, I just got. Let's see. There we go. Natalie.
Hi.
Yes. Woo. Sweet.
Yes. I'm
Uh,
just gonna turn you off on my computer.
awesome.
Oh, there we go. Off on my computer. Let me just get it sorted
Yay.
on
What's
there.
up, sister? How are you? Let's see.
There. Can you see and hear me okay?
Rock and roll. There we go. Perfectly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Can you see and hear me all right?
Yes.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Awesome. Natalie, thank you so much. I'm really excited to share this cyberspace with you and kind of
Yeah.
dive deep into some of the stuff. For those of you that uh, are not familiar with Natalie, I am so grateful to be connected with her. It was actually I got to give all the kudos and love in my heart to Jane from We're All in This Together that allowed me to connect with all of you beautiful people. So Jane, love you, sister. Thank you so much for blessing me with being introduced to such beautiful people. So I met Natalie through Jane, and Jane always talks so highly, of the work that Natalie did, and I wanted to get a little bit deeper into just understanding, the relationship with myself, and um, this is the time to do it. Obviously, we've been doing this work for a while, but there's no end to the essential, understanding of self that you can obtain. So I had a session with Natalie a couple evenings ago, and it was so cool. I mean,
Mhm.
I definitely got some really like massive chills. Like we're talking about my guides and higher self, and like just not going to go into detailed stuff, but I was like waving out. I couldn't even like really put it into words when I was on the phone with her, communicating with her, but I was waving out. I was like, whoa, this is the real deal. This is intense, like this is really cool. I could like feel, like I can't even put it into words, but it was very tangible, a very tangible experience. So yeah, I was like, Natalie, if you want to, like, talk about what you do and spread the word, let's do it, sister. So so
Yeah.
I'm grateful for what you do, and I'm excited to hop in with you and to have
Mm.
this little live session. um
Um,
Starting out, just for people to get maybe like a better, clear understanding of what exactly it is in your words that you do. I was explaining earlier before we had hopped on together that obviously you're a channeler, you speak light language, you're just this overall like really um, embodied, empowered like light worker. Um, and but let's hear it in your words.
yeah, no, super intro, and thank you so much for just holding space for us to have this amazing chat tonight. So cool to
Oh,
be able to like have this connection and just kind of come together. So
absolutely.
yeah, it's awesome.
Absolutely.
I also I was sort of listening to you when you were saying about your session that we had done, and how you're like, I couldn't really put it into words, and it was interesting because when I was doing the session, I kind of get in my zone and I start pulling pieces together and I'm doing my thing right. And there was this look sometimes that would come over your face, and I'm like, oh, he's totally feeling
That's
this. Like it is.
awesome.
There was no words. You just had this look, and you were like, oh, like
Totally.
you totally resonated so deeply.
Oh,
That was neat.
absolutely. Definitely. It's the my mom used to tell me when I grew up that my face spoke louder than my words. So
Mm. Yeah.
no, I love it. That's awesome. Thank you. No, thank you
Yeah, it's beautiful.
for allowing that to surface and stuff. That's totally awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, no, Natalie, let's I guess we'll just like hop straight into it if that's cool with you.
Yeah.
There's I have some of
So
this written down here. All right, here we go. So, all right, when we were talking, you first like put together just like a rough like document of a few things that you had been through and just some like really profound experiences. Now, there was obviously a very large and long list of those things considering how long you've been doing this for, but I just kind of went through and I picked a few things that stuck out and resonated and thought were kind of cool. So if that's all right with you, I'm just gonna like hop into a few of them and ask about what it was
yeah,
and how that came about. All right, so the soul fusing
sure.
during a missing person case. So you and maybe we'll go
Uh,
do like slight like backstory if you want, so like
yeah, absolutely. So, like, yeah, it was just a really powerful situation. So, I, I mean, yes, I do light language, I do healings, I do like, I always tell people if I was a singer, you have these people that have like wide or high amounts of range. Like their range is so vast.
right,
And so we have people that like kind of go way up in high frequency and people that sort of just stay within this range. And for me, my frequency does go really high, but it also goes to the different realms that might not be so high in frequency.
sure,
And so that includes like things like the elementals or things like spirits that are stuck sort of in the middle. They haven't crossed or they haven't, um, yeah, they haven't just gone back to source or they just haven't reincarnated or they're just really confused about like, well, something's happening, but I'm not really sure what. Um, so anyways, I work with a vast array of different things.
right,
And in this one particular situation, what you're like bringing forward, it was a missing persons case, and so I act a little bit
wow,
like a hub. So I'll get a little bit of information, like say you and I are talking, all of a sudden somebody will inbox me light language, which happened today. I was chatting away, and all of a sudden I'm like got this message about. It was like a physical message in my Instagram, and I opened it up, and it was just light language, no explanation, just light language. And I was like, okay,
cool,
and it didn't resonate with me. Like it wasn't something that was for me, and I was like, this is actually something for somebody else. And I'm like, let me play it again because I want to figure out who it's for. And I was like, the conversation that I'm actually just having with this individual, the light language is for that person. And
wow,
I'm like, hey, I think this is for you. And I like played it for the person. And they're like, absolutely, that was for me. That was totally for me. And I know they knew exactly what was going on. And I was like, okay, sweet. I'm glad I connected you. And like, peace, have fun.
wow,
So that kind of hub thing happens quite frequently that I have bits and pieces from one thing and then other pieces come in and so, in this particular case with this missing person situation, somebody just randomly sent me a link. And I was like, okay, missing person, like, I mean, there's lots of different things in the world that happen. And, like, okay, I'm missing person's link. But this one kind of like stood out to me because it was about a girl who had gone camping with her family and she was little. And the way her family had been situated was her zipper of her um, I guess it would be a sleeping bag, was actually connected. It was intertwined or somehow it zipped into the tent, and the kid couldn't
wow,
unzip it herself.
Okay.
So it wasn't like she just woke up and went for a little chore in the middle of the night. So everybody went to bed at night. She was zipped into her tent in her sleeping bag, and then woke up and she was gone. And so they were like, oh my goodness, like what happened? I think she was like 6 or something. So it was like a devastating situation. And
Wow.
we were looking for her, and she was gone for about 2 weeks. So for all those that are bleeding hearts and are like, oh my goodness, what happened? They do find her. She is okay. So she's happily, merrily living her life somewhere, doing her thing. But I had to really work this case where I went in to have a look to see like why was she taken and what took place that this took place, like that she was taken. And I was told that they many times when you have almost like a near death situation, they'll take a piece of soul
Mm.
or a piece of soul will be added. And so for this situation, they had her removed, they took a piece of soul, and before she came back, they gave this piece of soul to me. And I was like, really, at first I was kind of uncomfortable with it because I'm like, what do I do with it? And I'm not God. Like, yeah, for me, yeah, I was thinking like, isn't this God's work? Like, what is this? Why do I have somebody trying to deliver a piece of soul to me? Like, I don't understand. And I could see it, and it was there, and I was like, really puzzled by the situation. And then they told me, no, it's like you have to put this into a little girl who lives in Canada. And I was like, the little girl in Canada is
Whoa.
missing a piece of soul. Like, how is she living? I don't understand. Like, what's her capacity? What is it like for her living? And they're like, just don't ask a bunch of questions. Just put the piece of soul back where we tell you. And I was like, okay.
Right.
So they're like, open up Google Maps. And I was like, all right, I'm going to open up Google Maps. And I opened up Google Maps, and they're like, put in this coordination. They gave me the numbers. I put in that. And I'm like, fully expecting to see a road, probably a road, maybe even not a road, like some sort of like, I don't know, landscape. And I open it up, and there is a lady with a selfie stick, and on her back is a little girl.
Whoa.
And I'm like, what is going on? And
Wow.
I'm like, pause, because I'm like, oh my gosh, what is going on? What is happening?
That's
And they're like, that's the
totally.
girl, that's the girl, that's the girl. And I'm like, so this little girl's part soul that we removed is going in this little girl on the mom's back. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay. So do I just like, what do I do? How do I do this? Because I've never done this before. So how does this work? And they're like, you just put them together, and then you put your energy on them, and it fuses together. And I'm like, okay, like this, how am I doing it? How does this work?
Whoa.
And I'm like, why does this work? And they're like, because you just use your energy. And I'm like, okay. So I just put my hand on them, and I just kind of use the energy that's in your brain. You send a wave through yourself to out your hands, and then it sealed them. And I was like, is that it? Did it work? And they're like, yes, worked. And I'm
Whoa.
like, so now what happens? And they're like, now she functions. And then she goes about. And I'm like, is there any change? And they're like, you don't need to ask a bunch of questions. Just carry on.
That's
I'm like, okay.
wild.
So, yeah,
Oh my goodness.
that's kind of wild. Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. Now, I mean, that's
And then,
like
like,
it's crazy how intense of an experience. Like I couldn't even fathom. I wouldn't even know like what to do. I'd be in my I'd be tripping out. No, no,
yeah.
it's like really it's really amazing that you have that. Oh, that's a great question. I just saw actually, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Jane, thank you, Jane. We love you.
Yeah.
She said,
Jane. Hi, Jane.
who were you talking to, and who's guiding you? That's a good question.
So at that time, it was directly from source that was coming in.
So, okay.
And like, you could just feel that the source energy coming in, and you're like, what is this? What is happening? Like, why is this allowed? And it's just like you you just it's really hard to explain. You just know. Um, and you're
Yeah.
like, wow, okay, okay. So I do have a team of angels that work with me when I have things that I'm like, I don't know how to do this. They'll like come in and they'll show me like, put your hands here or do this. And I also have like, I moved into a almost like a new mission. But each time I do different tasks, I have an assigned higher self come with
Okay.
me or come to me. And so right now I have an Octorian version of my higher self that is kind of always there. So when I have questions or I hear a voice, it's usually his. So it's kind of cool. But
It's
in this
amazing.
case, with the missing person, it was directly from source.
Directly
Mm-hmm.
from source. And I saw somebody else in the comments here, somebody asked, what does a piece of soul look like? I think that's a cool question.
Ooh, good question. Good question. So a piece of soul to me looks like a light body. It doesn't look like it has an earth image. Like it doesn't look like it has human qualities. Whereas like we have a vessel and we can see human qualities um, and characteristics. When I have a piece of soul, it looks just like a light body. It's energetic and
Mm,
it just is like a flickery type thing to it. And it's just energy and light. And it just does this.
sure.
It's about like this long in my head. Like when I see it, it's about that long, which is normal. Like most of my visual is about that. Um, so yeah, it looked quite normal to me. It
Sure.
sounds funny even to say that, but just looks like a light body. Hmm.
Beautiful.
And
That's
the crazy thing is, we fuse those, and I'm not the only person because when I had this experience, I was like freaking out a little bit, like, oh my goodness, I can't just willy-nilly just start fusing and taking pieces. Like, what is this?
of
Like, if
course.
everybody did this, the world would be chaotic. Like, people
Oh
can't just
yeah.
walk around like, give me a piece of your soul, please, and like, here's another piece for you. Like, this isn't a recipe that we're making a cake. Like, this is some pretty serious stuff. And so, it's a big responsibility. And I think in that case, the responsibility part was really heavy for me because I was like, what if I screw this up?
Right.
Like, what if it's not supposed to go there? Like, I can't ask a whole lot of questions around it. Like, this feels like this is important stuff. So
Absolutely.
they would do things like there's pieces of souls that would go missing when people were born. So there was another lady who had given birth and she was talking to me, like she messaged me and she's like, I gave birth to a child. She's now like 22. She's still not functioning to the best of her capacity. I think she could function more, but she was deprived of oxygen for 5 minutes during birth because a cord was wrapped around her neck. And I could go in to the time where she was giving birth and I could see, and I was like, this is a doctor's error. Like, that, right?
Sure.
And she's like, yeah,
Wow.
we knew that. And so I'm like, I can see the piece of soul leaving. Like, where did that piece go? And so I could ask for, where did this piece of soul go? Like, why was it taken? And when is it coming back? Like, where is it now?
Right.
And so they gave me the piece of soul back, and I fused that piece together. And the lady, I didn't tell the lady because I was like, this is just weird. Like, nobody's going to believe that I'm finding pieces of souls and putting them back to people. Like, talk about people thinking you're like, oh, you think you're super special, don't you? So some things you just don't tell people. So you're like,
Sure.
okay, um, so this lady's daughter just got a big piece of soul back. Like, that's great. And anyway, she messaged me, I think it was like a day or two later, and she's like, you wouldn't believe my daughter's like starting to function. She's like her awareness is more present. And I was like, okay, good.
Wow.
Like, there's actual evidence that this works. Like, this
Yeah.
soul was supposed to go back to her, and it worked. Like, this is
Wow.
so cool. Hmm.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
that's truly it's amazing. And I actually saw another question.
Hmm.
Um, we'll hit these two here. I think these are awesome. Yeah, once again, Jane, thank you. These are like amazing questions, things that like I should have thought of to ask you, Natalie, earlier. These are great. Yeah, like did something trigger your gifts? Like what was there like a obviously, I mean, there's the question, but was there like a moment that you had this profound like, whoa, like I can now see through the veil, hear through the veil, operate through the veil, feel through the veil, or has it just something that you've just eased into over time? Like what triggered it?
Those are great questions. So, and I was trying to think of that as well because I'm like, I feel like I got it in stages. So, I mean, when I was 8, I clearly remember being able to stand beside my brother who was 3 years younger. So he was 5 and I was 8. And we would say, like, you stand here with my body because I'm going to leave my body and I'm going to fly down the stairs and I'm going to talk to our parents, like, see what they're watching on TV. And so we would do this thing where we would stand at nighttime after we'd gone to bed at the top of the stairway and we would spin and make ourselves really dizzy and woozy. And then we'd be able to step out of our bodies as we went down the stairs.
Wow.
Um, and so, and he remembered, like, we didn't talk about it after we would do it from time to time, and then we grew up and we didn't talk about it, we didn't do it anymore. And it was like years later, we were in our 20s or something, and he's like, remember when we used to fly down the stairs and like leave our bodies? And we were both kind of like shocked, like, you talk about that? You remember that?
That's awesome.
So I definitely had a piece where I was aware from a young age. I would have dreams like Anubis would chase me through my dreams. Like it was really scary because he was like this crazy dog living thing and he
Sure.
would just full out like it was intense and I was like terrified for my life. It was crazy. Later on, I realized that him and I were actually in the Egyptian timeline working quite closely together, and we worked
Wow.
at transferring souls and like weighing them out and like counseling with them and then like figuring out what do we do next. So he
Wow.
was just like, hey, Natalie, he was like happy to see me, but I don't know if you've ever met Anubis. He's not the most like, hey, friendly and like, you know, he doesn't radiate like feelings of like friendliness. You just kind of want to do this when you meet him. So yeah, so I had those dreams when I was growing up. Um, and then my, I was working almost like Dolores Cannon with the subconscious. And so I was doing that because my background is trauma therapy. So 20 years ago, I decided, hey, you know what, I want to be a trauma therapist. Went to school, did all the courses, opened my practice, was
Right.
doing trauma therapy. I learned I could use muscle testing to access the subconscious.
Mm.
And so for the past, like, I guess almost 4 years, I was working with people's subconscious and accessing their memory. I didn't realize that, like, when you're accessing people's memories, that it will eventually go into their past life memories.
Oh,
So when I was doing it, when I first started, it was all about like my arm hurts and I don't know why. And we know on the therapy side that when you have a feeling, your body will embody that and try to like move it to the surface and try to give you a sign, hey, like these feelings that you didn't process is now coming out in your nervous system as a pain that's coming forward. So
right.
I was going in, helping people with their pains. All was great. And then I started getting like, wow, this is like past lives. And they're like, yeah, I actually remember. As I started articulating to them what I'm seeing, they're like telling me, yeah, I remember this, but I don't know how I remember this. And I'm like, wow, this is like reverse
Totally.
hypnosis. This is
Yeah.
reverse hypnosis. I'm the one going under and going in and talking to your subconscious, telling you what I'm seeing. You're like, yeah, I remember this. This is
Wow.
cool. Yeah.
That is
So that strategy is actually called wasamali
okay.
because I was saying, I do a lot of baths and meditations in my bath, and I was saying like, guys, I feel like this is something like super important that the world needs to know, and they're like, yeah, but you just got to wait for the right time, and I'm like, well, what is it called? Like, I don't know how to describe it with one word, what I do, and they're like, it's coming, and I'm like, well, what is it called? And they gave it to me in like their it's another language, but it's Wasamali is what it breaks down to. And I'm like,
Very
so when
cool.
I tell people it's Wasamali, they're not gonna know, and they're like, you just give it time,
Wow.
they'll know. And I'm like, okay, yeah,
That's amazing. Wasamali? Wasamali?
yeah,
That's
Wasamali,
awesome.
Wasamali, yeah.
That's way
So
cool.
yeah,
Yeah, that's I mean it literally is from what you described like reverse hypnosis. So
yes,
you're having their subconscious like triggers or not triggers but energies that's triggering certain kinesiologic
oh,
that's a word,
oh.
you know what I'm trying to say, and then it's that
Yes,
information, the code that's going into that which is triggering that occurrence is then like being transmuted to you, and then you're able to like break it down and put the puzzle pieces
mm-hmm.
together and uncode it essentially.
Yeah. But
Wow.
I can actually go in when I scan their body, like when I was muscle testing and I found the feeling in their body, I could say, what is this feeling related to? And I would be taken to the time that it occurred and be like a fly on the wall and observing. So I do like
Wow.
these drop-ins and I'd be like, oh wow, you're like 6, but you don't look like you. You're like a different life. Like you're a boy. You're like a
Totally.
6-year-old boy. And I'm like, wow, okay, so interesting. And then they would say like, yeah, I remember when I was a boy and my mom's leaving the room. I'm like, yeah, your mom's leaving the room. Yeah, you're crying. She's like, and so all these memories would come like flooding back and these triggers and activations. And I'm like, this is so cool.
Oh
So
yeah.
I was doing that for like the 4 years. And then accessing the subconscious, but I didn't realize I was accessing the records, like the akashic records, and getting the information and going into the records and viewing things, right? I had
Right.
no idea what I was doing. I just did what I was told. And
Of
so
course.
I'm like, okay, cool. And then my next piece of soul came in when I had my last baby. So he's now almost 2. And that's when things went like whoop, they just like flipped. The whole world flipped. And I
Sure.
he was the only baby out of my 4 boys that I had an epidural. And I knew because I was accessing past life memories and things like that, that in a past life, I had died delivering him.
Whoa.
And it was the same baby that came back. And we
Wow.
are in the same situation again now at that time where I'm about to give birth to the same baby that killed me essentially last time. So
Sure.
this baby has all these feelings about like, I don't want to come out. I'm gonna kill you. Like last time I came out of you, I killed you. And I was like doing all these like clearings for him as he's in my room, and we're like working through it, and we're talking to each other, and we're like working it out. And I'm like,
Wow.
it's not gonna happen this time. So I go into labor. The baby is like stuck. He's in the wrong position. Everything that could go wrong is going wrong. The cord's wrapped around his neck twice as I'm pushing him down. The cord's pulling him up, and he's like it was just like the worst situation. I'm in labor
Oh,
for like 4 days. Like, it was just brutal. And so fine, and I didn't have to have a C-section. They finally got him out. Everything was good, and they're like, "You're gonna have to stay in the hospital for like 3 days." They didn't tell me that at the time. They're like, "You're gonna have to stay overnight." I'm like, "Okay, okay, I guess." Typically, I have my babies, and an hour later, I'm at home. Like here in Canada, you can have a midwife and you can leave whenever you're ready. So I'm like, okay, I'm away from my other kids. Like, I don't like this, but if they say I have to stay, I have to stay. So I stay. I realize, after, like, fast forward, I realize now that they kept me in the hospital for my own protection because while I was in the hospital, I was shielded by a lot of the nurses being angels.
mm,
Um, and so I was kind of in my weakened state at that point, and I had received a piece of soul. So they, instead of having me die, they had, because a lot of times when people have near death experiences, they receive a piece of soul back. So
mm,
instead of
right.
using my like 3D life to do that, they used a parallel life where in the past I had died and they slipped it in and then transferred and integrated.
Wow.
So I was like, so cool. So yeah, after that I was pretty activated. I could start seeing angels. That's when the angels came forward. I think my baby was about 3 months old, and the angel came forward and said, the pain that you have in your shoulder isn't from the epidural. The pain that you have is because you don't know the real feeling of true love. And I was like, at first I was like, yeah, I see an angel. Like this is kind of cool, but maybe I'm imagining things. And so I'm like carrying on having my bath, doing my thing, and I'm like looking to the side. I'm like, nope, I still see him. I'm like, do do do
Yep.
do do. Yep, definitely still there.
Totally. Oh my goodness. I can empathize so deeply, like of not fully to the degree of having like face-to-face communication, but I think I briefly mentioned this to you in our session the other day when I think from working with plant medicine for like so many years, for well over probably a decade, close to 50, little over 15 years, just consistently, trying to pierce through those veils and like, break. I see like if I look into like a dark room or if I just look up at the night sky and it's just dark, but there's like a little like brim of light and stuff, they'll start materializing. I'll totally see like
Mm-hmm.
angels, interesting entities, like things like that. And when it first started happening, excuse me, about when it first started happening, probably like a few years into working with plant medicine, so a little over 12 years ago, maybe. Very first started happening, that would happen where it would like there'd be something in my peripherals, and
Mm.
like I would look and I would have to look away, and then it would like come right back to the side, and I just it's like you want to like ignore it. You're trying everything in your will to just be like come up with some excuse to like justify it in the physical realm, like no, that has to be something, or like maybe I whatever my, and it's just there's nothing. You're just like out of excuses at that point. You're like, stop like lying to my like myself, just like we know that there's something much greater like working here with us, just embrace and accept. So that's kind of like, that's amazing that
Yeah.
that it was like actually communicating to you and telling you. Now, could you audibly hear it? Like, was it
Mhm.
an audible? Yeah, okay, word.
Yeah,
Wow.
I could hear it in my head. Like it's like it's a distant voice. It's different than your own voice, and it's a distant voice. It's like not an echo, but it's like you have a thought, and then the words come after your thought, and you're like, my thought was this one, and
Yeah.
these were my words, but then right after was this other thing,
Yep.
and I'm like, that's not me. That's something else that's saying that. It's
Absolutely.
like, yeah. And you can totally check, like, are you talking to me? And then you hear like, I'm talking to you. And I'm like, are you talking to me? I'm talking to you. I'm like, what's going on? Yeah,
A
so
hundred
something's
percent.
talking to me.
A hundred
Yeah,
percent. It's
yeah.
so true. And
It's
I think it's fascinating how so many people can relate to that. It's those things that we all experience, but we don't ever like say because we have this innate fear of being judged in this dimension
mm,
of like so many, you know, so many densities, and people projecting their own insecurities of not necessarily diving into that side of the human experience. So like, I mean, I at least I'll speak for myself. When I was younger, that was a big thing.
mm,
Just like gonna keep my mouth shut. Like I know what's going on. I feel it. I hear it. I see it. I know it. I just, but no one's gonna know that I'm experiencing this.
mm,
Like,
yeah.
you know, that's why the greats, you know, like some of the greatest minds in the history of time that we know of here that have incarnated on this planet. I should say greatest hearts and souls and minds, greatest spirits that have been here. You know, they completely chastise them, and they completely do everything they can to bring this like overwhelming sense of um, this devalidation, this like lack of that,
Mm,
because it's so real and it's so tangible. And you know, the classic saying um, like you know, in numbers we like in unity. Well, I'm it's not a saying anymore because I'm butchering it, but it's the classic understanding that united, you know,
mm,
we are unstoppable. And if people unite in that consciousness of knowing that we are deeply interconnected and we are working together on not just this realm but so many parallel dimensions, realms, versions of Earth, other planets, like your soul is in so many different places simultaneously working with fractals of itself, and but like if everybody were to be operating like that and come together, you know, we would be pretty unstoppable people.
mhm,
We could do pretty much, not pretty much, absolutely anything. And that's where I really believe we are headed, especially, you know, as we approach, as the solar waves, solar flares, and I should, and waves of energy that are hitting the earth get more intense and more intense, and there's more X class, and M class
mm,
is now just like a regular thing. Now the X class is
uh-huh.
like, X class is becoming a regular thing now. So like, you know, as yeah, I guess we're headed there is what I'm trying to say. I do believe that as this grand flash does come in, and this energy really upgrades, you know, our consciousness and our DNA genomic structure and everything, we're about to, you know, come back to that place where we can unite and do some really
Mm,
amazing things. Anything
yeah,
that we set our minds to together as a collective, you know. Oh,
absolutely.
Jane threw in there. Awesome. Thank you so much, Jane. Do you get daily downloads or energy updates?
So yes, what happens now? My biggest, newest mission is around working with the collective,
Yeah.
which is so exciting for me. Like, so exciting for me because, like, I wanted to put messages out. I've wanted to share stories. I've wanted to be able to help, like, all my life. But I was always just told, not yet. It's not the right time yet. Just wait. And I'm like, what am I waiting for? Like Christmas? I feel like I'm waiting for Christmas and I'm like, 5 and Christmas is never coming. It just takes forever to get here, right? And so I was having all these adventures and I'm like, I want to. They're like, no, you're not sharing it with anybody. I'm like, oh, good God, right? Like, so now it's super exciting that I can work with the collective and share these activating stories. And they're like, there's a reason that you have to share these. And so each day they're like giving me information or telling me like, remember this, Natalie? And they're like, yeah, why? I remember that. And they're like, that. Well, now's the time for that story. Like, or remember, I'll have somebody inbox me and they'll say, this is what happened to me last night. And I'm like, that's today's thing. Like,
Totally.
thank you. Like you brought that forward. And that the last one that I shared was about headaches. When we astral travel, we'll sometimes get these headaches, or if we're in higher frequency, we'll get these headaches.
Sure.
And so she was explaining, her name's Sarah, and she was explaining to me like, hey, I had this experience on the ship, and it looked like this, it felt like this, and I'm like, let me go have a look. So I like drop in, and I'm having a look, and I can see her sitting beside her child. I'm like, that's why you astral traveled here, because you were looking for your child. And I'm like, that child is now your child in this lifetime. And they're like, whoa, that's so cool. I knew this person. And so I'm like, they also have something on your head. Like, what is on your head? They're telling me that they're like doing something to your brain, or you have something on your head. It's like some technology on your head. She's like, yeah, I could feel it when it was happening. So it's like
Wow.
back and forth in this conversation. And she was saying, like, I still really feel unwell from being in that astral travel situation. And I was saying to her, like, I was saying to my guide, like, do you know this is happening? And he's like, yeah, that's been happening since the beginning of time. It's called Palacia. And I was like, what is that? And they're like, well, we burn their brain so that their memories like move. And I'm like, that's awful. And he's like, yeah, well, and I'm like, so what do we do? And he's like, nothing. I'm like, no, like think harder. We have to do something. And he's like, well, I guess you could put iodine on it.
Oh
And
wow.
I'm like, okay. So I like take the lady's brain and I like pull it up and I'm like, oh, there's two pieces that are lit. So I tell her, I'm like, there's two pieces of your brain that are lit. She's like, yeah, that's what hurts. I'm like, ah, that's where I'm supposed to pour the iodine. She's like, what? I'm like, yeah, I'm just supposed to pour iodine on it. So I pour the iodine on it. She's like, oh my God, you feel so much better. I'm like, we're having these conversations and it's so normal now. And they're like, share that. That is, so many people have those headaches and you just have to share that. I'm like, okay,
Wow.
that's good.
That's
Mm-hmm.
wild.
Yeah.
That's wild. Yeah. And I just as I just saw like a bunch of comments I want to throw out. Thank you so much, Game Crazy 019 for participating so much with us here. We're getting a lot of he's like really interacting with us and saying a lot of stuff
Yes.
and thank you Nelly H for
Mm,
reposting earlier. Yeah, girl.
yeah.
And of course I just want to throw out a big thank you to like Open Heart, biggest hug to Jane for helping us so much with just
Mm,
keeping the flow going and keeping the questions coming and the beautiful energy. I really, really appreciate you guys. It
mm,
means the world as everyone works together, like we are all working together collectively, energetically, like as you guys are tuning into this and participating with us and taking the time to put your energy into the phone and type and like it's like
yeah.
all really like it's tangible energy. So it's I really want to take a moment and give my on behalf obviously of both of us like just deep gratitude for everyone taking their time to participate in this.
Mm,
And I think Natalie, my goodness, like biggest like such an indescribable amount of gratitude and compassion from my heart to yours
yeah.
for like really going through these experiences and like having these powerful I should say courageous soul contracts.
Mm,
It really takes someone courageous to go out there and to say, you know, this is what I do. Like, this is how I work with the field. This is how I contribute my energy into the world. And not even that you're going out and being like, this is me, but you're doing just what you
Mm,
do naturally. And that's obviously what comes is being an inspiration in the way that you are to so many people that have the pleasure of working with you, or even, you know, accepting some of the codes that you give in your light language, and a
mm,
lot of the downloads that you share on your page and stuff. For those of you that are not familiar already, oh my goodness, I'm going to put it in the comments. Divine transmissions. Okay. All
mhm,
right. It's in the comments here. Um, oh, why am I? It's DIVINETRANTRANSMISSIONS, right? Oh,
mhm.
there we go. Oh, thank you. Awesome. Okay, there we go. I just want to make sure. I wanted to contribute, put that in there as well. Cool.
Awesome. Thanks.
Oh my gosh. And if that's all right, I had like I wanted to touch on one more thing with you before. I know
Yeah.
it's almost been about the time, but if that's cool with you, we can go a couple more
Yeah.
minutes and touch on a few more things here. Okay. Yeah, this was a really cool one. Um Herself. ET's coming to work on me, like,
That's such a good one.
yeah. Let's hear about
That's
that.
such a good one. But I didn't actually know much about this experience. That I thought it was unique to me until LTF from Light Codes by Allah spoke about it. I was watching one of her interviews and she spoke about it, and I was like, somebody else has that happen to them too. So
Wow.
cool. Um, so what happened was I was in my Egyptian timeline and I was working on a house. So somebody had come forward, like a human had come forward. We were working as a team, so myself and two other humans were working on as a team because spirits were in this house and we were trying to get the spirits out of the house. And so we went in and like in the 5D, like I stayed in my house in my Earth location,
Sure.
but we like 5D go in and we help the spirits, we access them, we like try to clear them out, we try to like resolve things. So I will often, if they're trapped and in between, they'll usually need some kind of counseling and like support and like so sometimes I'll send an angel team to go help them. But in this case, they went to this couple that is called James and Rhonda, and they all they do is work in that space of helping spirits cross. That's like one job, and that's all
Wow.
they do for the whole time that they've been active. That's all they do is cross spirits and counsel and sit with them at night and talk to them. It's like they're very dedicated. So we go in, I clear out this house, we move all the spirits to James and Rhonda's, and I'm like, as I'm working on it, I realize that the homeowner is actually doing some like crazy Wicca stuff and like pagan, but it's like dark stuff.
Yeah, wow.
And as I'm working on it, it just like it wants to suck me back. I'm like stop. And so what happened was they said, like Source came forward and was like, look, um, and in the Egyptian timeline and where I was working at in that time, Source looks very much to me at that time like God. And so they, as if they had an image, that's what it would come forward looking like. And so he had me go to a location in the sky on a cloud and work from the secret location in the sky.
Wow.
And so I called it God's balcony. And he would just put me on his balcony and I would like work from there and access things. It was so cool. But because of the dark Wicca or pagan or whatever she was doing, the homeowner, the energy was really strong. And even from a secret hidden balcony, I was being like sucked off, like energetically sucked. And I remember like clawing my way back onto the cloud and being like, oh my gosh, what was that? So, anyways, it was like really intense. And um, what happened next was there was a lady that went out to the location. She was working with James and Rhonda. Her name is Jenna. And she's like, this is a burial ground. Like, there's something going on in the backyard. And I like
Wow.
dropped in and I'm like, there's all these um, remains that are there. It's almost like there was a battleground of like native battlegrounds, and then it was a valley, and then they just plowed it shut.
Whoa.
Like they plowed topsoil over it, and then they built a house on it. And I was like,
Oh my
what is
goodness.
going on? So we like Jenna was there. She helped all the people's burial stuff like leave, and then I found this baby, and I was like, Jenna, I have like this baby that just arrived at my house. Like it's this 5D baby. What's going on? And she's like, I don't know. I think there was like a brothel there. There's like a bunch of stuff happening, and I'm like, okay, but at least that I don't know what to do with this baby. Like whose baby is this? And nobody was coming forward to claim it. And I'm like holding this baby, and I'm like light languaging, like calling for the mom of this baby. And I'm like, maybe she crossed the baby's mom. Like, I don't understand. And then all of a sudden, this like opening, it looked like a portal started to open. And I was like, this is not the typical portals that I usually see. Like, this was like crazy energy coming out and like crazy sparkles. And like, now I know it's like all crystal. And it's like vibrant blue and white. And I'm like, okay. And then this ET being arrives, and this baby energetically floats out of my hands and over to this being. And what had happened was
Wow.
being's like so grateful and like total gratitude, and was like, you found my baby. Like these people have been stealing our babies and like moving them and taking them, and they're putting them in, they take the soul or the consciousness or whatever out of our babies and put them in traffic. The kids that have been trafficked, they put them in there because they'll always have childlike qualities
Right.
if you do that.
Oh my
And so
God.
they're like stealing all these babies, and so they were like, "Do you want to come work for us?" And I was like, "I just met you, who you are." And they're like, "Do you want to come? Like, we can help you." And I'm like, "I don't need any help." And they're looking at me like, "I'm pretty sure you do." And I'm like, in the Egyptian timeline, you trust nobody. It's like, yeah, I can do everything myself. I don't want to be owing anybody anything, indebted to anybody. Like, I'm good. And so he's like, "No, I can help you." And I'm like, "Just take your baby and go away." But it was very intriguing because it was so beautiful and bright and glittery down that cave
Whoa.
where they came from. And so it wasn't until later, so they came 3 different times before I was like, we just mutually looked at each other and was like, it has to happen. So they then began working on me. And what would happen is they would come at nighttime. The first time they came, they had a deliberation where they had to kind of like figure out, okay, if we take, and I could hear them. I'm sleeping but conscious, and I could hear them. There's three, one by my feet and one on either side, and they're talking about me as if I'm not there. And they're like, yeah, but she's too much karma to lift. Like, she's too dense to lift. Her body isn't going to sustain if we move her. And they're like, but if we don't move her, they're going to get her. Like, she's not going to sustain anyway because look at how at risk she is. And this was because something had tricked me. I had gone into a parking lot and there was a lady in there and she had fallen, and I went and reached down to help her up, and she was a dark being, and she, as she touched me, she like, it was gross. And they were like, well, like you extended your hand and offered your service to her, but I'm like, she was elderly and fell, and they're like, this is what we mean. You're at risk. You can't stay here. And so they were kind of like arguing, and then finally they were like, look, her new mission is ready, and we need to move her because she has the new calling, the new mission has to start. So she has to prepare, she has to get ready, and we have to move. So that's when the work started. And I could feel them doing things to my body. They came and they told me, like, we have to do the work here while you're on Earth, but we're going to do it while you're sleeping, like your body's asleep, but you have to stay conscious and awake. And so in order to do that, we're going to give you these dreams where there's some kind of like problem that you have to solve. It's like
Sure.
high feelings and lots of problems. And so they give you these dreams where you're like, oh, I bumped into somebody and I forgot this, and I have to go over to this person's house, but the water's left on, and then I have to run over here, and then I hit something, and all these problems that occur. And so the last time I had one of those dreams, I said to them, I know you're working on me. Stop. Because it's like the dreams get too intense sometimes, and you're like, they're so real and they keep you awake on purpose. Um, but yeah, they just go in and they tell you, like, we have to remove this, we have to add this. Yeah, they told me in order to stay awake and be doing so much stuff at nighttime in your dreams, like your body's actually not able to regenerate because you get a lot of our like the rapid eye like sleep, right?
Sure.
And
Sure.
so you don't actually have a lot of rejuvenation that's happening because you're not accessing that deep sleep. You're so awake in your sleep so often.
Right.
So they're like, we're going to give you this device and put it inside you so that you don't need as much sleep. So your body, the device helps you regenerate. And I was like,
Wow.
okay, like just do whatever work you need to. So they'll like add things and take things out and they'll put different things back in. And that helped me embody the new higher self that comes in
Sure.
for the new task that we have to do.
Wow.
So that's it.
My God, that's amazing.
You know,
Natalie, you're
crazy.
awesome. Like you, I mean, with these gifts and just your ability to really operate and work with beings on, through the veil, things that are absolutely far outside of third density consciousness. Like, thank you for, yeah, for sharing your experiences. Like, thank you for like going so in depth with like, it's just, I guess, like knowledge is power,
Mm-hmm.
and with you taking the time to, share and be so candid and open about a lot of the things that well, I'm sure not a lot, a very small portion of the things that you've been through, but it's so fascinating. It really is. Um, this these are the kind, to segue into like, these are the conversations that I feel like are necessary to be having, at these
Mm-hmm.
times as we are experiencing this, very tangible and noticeable acceleration of energy. The conversation needs to move from the, day to day third density stuff to, is, yeah, as guided soul Tarot just said, sharing the impossible is reality. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Well said.
Mm-hmm.
And, it it raises the collective consciousness, like the vibration of anyone and everyone that is open to understanding that these are things that are happening. It is a leap of understanding. It's obviously, it takes some time to adapt, to realize that this is what's happening beyond what you can taste, smell, touch, and hear, just right here, and no, I think it's so amazing that you have the courage to come out there and be like, hey, listen up, guys, like, this is what's going on, and if you
Mm-hmm.
are open to it, you can help too, like,
Mm-hmm.
I also, something I really admire about you is you always encourage, everybody that you work with and that you communicate with and speak to and help, I should say, is you always encourage them to do what is necessary to assist in being their best version of self. It's not, you're not just saying like, only I can do it. You're saying like, everybody
Mm-hmm.
has the accessibility to do this, and if anything, you're like, I want you to access these, you know
Yeah.
um basically unpeel these veils, activate that part of your consciousness which allows you to perceive these things and embody the rest of whatever remaining facets or parts of the soul need to be embodied to really be able to dive into the work that matters. Because
Mm-hmm.
this is the work that matters most, like what
Mm-hmm.
you do, the work that not everyone sees but everyone feels, is the stuff that matters most, so
Yeah.
thank you, truly.
You're welcome. I feel like that's
Unconditional love.
very, thank you. Those are super kind words, Dave. And
It's the
I
truth.
totally feel them. And I do feel like that comes from my therapy background. Is about empowering your client, is empowering the person that you work with. Because when I worked my therapy, like government position, we were only there 13 weeks. So by the time I left, you need to stand on your feet. Like,
Right.
I'm not coming back. I need to be able to have you sustain yourself. And
Yeah.
so if you were relying on me as the solution, that's not it. Like, it comes from you. And so I have to activate you so you can stand on your feet and do this.
Right.
Like, I know you can. You need to know you can. And so it's so cool to watch people like feel like they can't swim. And then when I tell them, like, you just needed me to put my hand here, and now you can. Like,
Yeah.
it's okay. You just needed this. Almost like when you learn to ride a bike and your parents behind you and they hold that, and like they're not really doing anything, they're just holding it, right? And
Totally.
yeah. they're like, pedal, pedal, and then you realize their voice is getting farther behind you and they're not holding. You're like,
Yeah,
what? But I'm doing it.
exactly.
Yeah.
100%. And next
Yes.
thing you know, like you're like this boss bicycle rider. I remember that. I'm literally
Yes.
that exact thing happened to me. It's funny you said that. The exact when I learned how to ride a bike, the exact. I thought my parents were holding it, and they weren't. And then I remember like that week, I was like, who needs parents? Like, not really, but who
Yeah, I
needs help
don't
with a
need him
bike?
to
Like,
hold me.
you know.
Yeah.
No,
And
yeah,
that is
no,
it.
totally. Yeah,
We can all do that. And it is like just supporting each other enough so that we can get to that next stage. We are all just scaffolding around each other to help build to the next layer. And
right,
it's like so beautiful to see everybody kind of banding together and helping each other. And if one person doesn't really know how to meditate, they'll like ask, like, all these, we've normalized it.
right.
Asking questions and being able to be in a safe place is just so incredible. That, I mean, 2 or 3 years ago was totally different, right? So
It's so
yeah.
true.
So
Oh my gosh, it's so true. Natalie, thank you.
mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for taking your time and your energy. And yeah,
You're
for those of you, make
welcome.
sure to, if you don't already, I'm sure you do, but if you don't already, make sure to drop in on Divine Transmission and drop a
Yeah.
follow and some hearts in the DMs or,
Yes, I would love to see you, love to hear from you. We are also doing another live on the 20th. So if you have any questions, Dave and I and a bunch of the girls will be together hanging
that's
out on the
right.
20th as well. So yeah, I'm excited. There's
That's
so many
right.
exciting things to come, and yeah, different platforms that we can, get out here and like share stories and help activate more memories.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just the beginning. We're just getting the ball rolling. And I want to say,
Mm-hmm.
Leona 1111, thank you so much for the kind message. She said, "Thank you, Brother Martin, platform for helping unite and understand." And it's people like that obviously, yeah, love it. Really grateful for it because yeah, the more platforms that there are like this of bringing this awareness to the forefront of those that resonate and are vibrational equivalent to
Mm-hmm.
getting the information and understanding what's going on is so amazing, and yeah, thank you both. Obviously, Nellie H, like, yeah, Natalie, thank you for most importantly, thank you for your platform for doing what you've done.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, this is a really beautiful uh, way to share information these days. It's really cool. We get to
Absolutely.
press a
Thank
button and
you.
hop on and share these
Yeah,
stories.
having a
It's way cool.
connection.
That's
Mm-hmm.
right. So
Absolutely.
true. Love you
Yeah,
so much, Natalie.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you. You're most welcome.
looking forward to the 20th. That's going to be awesome. And then
Mm.
of course the 23rd meditation. That's going to be
Oh
awesome.
yeah.
Just got all this great stuff coming up. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. And it just feels like so energetically, it feels super strong.
It
And
does.
so it just, you can kind of feel the vibration. And yeah, our last meditation was beautiful. We had, I was talking to the girls afterwards, Altia and Mina, and I was saying to them, like, that it feels when it is the time, like the day, the morning before the meditation happens, um, the equivalent or like the best way I can describe it is that I imagine of a racehorse. So if you've ever seen racehorses when they get out and ready to be like saddled up and they know the race is coming and they know like they're getting in the trailer, they're so jumpy. They're like, choop,
Oh
choop,
yeah,
choop, like
totally.
it's just like all this
That's right.
energy and they're just ready. They like have all this energy going through them, and then they get to the gate, and the gate opens, and they're like galloping, and they're like full throttle, and they're like living their purpose. They're just loving it.
Yes.
And then you, like in this meditation in particular, like I was like galloping and loving it because we all have our eyes closed, most of it. Like I don't think Altia did, but Mina and I are like closed our eyes and we're like doing our thing and we're like galloping full throttle. We're like clearing everything. We're like blah 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 blah. It
Wow.
was nuts. And then I like for an instant you like feel there's people beside you.
Mm.
So as racehorses, we're like realizing like there's people that are galloping with you for the first time
Oh
ever. You
yeah.
like look beside you, and you're like, oh, there's my people. Like, this
Yeah.
is so cool. They're also like full throttle and doing their thing, and we're like just so in sync, and lots of like vibrations and energy coming through. And it's like, wow, like this is so powerful. And I think that's where I realized how powerful it is to be able to be so in sync with individuals and then come together as a collective and then just be part of something so huge.
Oh yeah.
That it's so
Absolutely.
beautiful.